Look at this face. Gaze into these features. In the Neues Museum in Berlin, behind armored glass, it stands. A bust bathed in precisely calibrated light, an icon that has defined female beauty for the modern world. Queen Nefertiti. Her name is music, an echo across millennia. The beautiful one has come. The heretic smile, a whisper that promises eternity. The sculptor Thutmose, who crafted this masterpiece 3,300 years ago, was a genius of propaganda. He did not sculpt a mere portrait of a woman. He forged an idol. He compelled us to believe in the divine perfection of Egypt's rulers. We look upon this face and imagine a life of languid ease, the scent of lotus blossoms, golden barges drifting down the Nile, and the silent weight of absolute power. We see the tale of a great love between the heretic Pharaoh Akhenaten and his exquisite queen, a couple who defied the ancient gods to build a city dedicated to the sun. But what if this bust is the most artful lie in history? What if, behind this perfect facade of painted limestone, there hides a reality so grim it would make our modern blood run cold? A reality not of gold and incense, but of putrefying flesh, of genetic mutation, unbearable pain, and a cruelty that bordered on madness. For centuries, the sands of Egypt kept their silence. Tombs were plundered, mummies were torn asunder by thieves searching for amulets. Names were hammered from stone walls by the chisels of their enemies. The truth, it seemed, was lost forever. But in the 21st century, the science of the past was reborn. The romantics in pith helmets gave way to geneticists in sterile white coats. The Valley of the Kings was transformed into a vast forensic laboratory. Computed tomography scanners sliced through ancient remains with beams of light, never disturbing a single linen wrap. DNA sequencers drilled into bone dust, reading a code written 3 millennia ago. And what they discovered, locked within the desiccated cells of these royal mummies, did not just challenge the legend, it annihilated it. This is not a story of love. It is the chronicle of a biological catastrophe. The story of a dynasty that, in its obsessive pursuit of divine purity of blood, turned its own lineage into a gallery of genetic horrors. We are opening the secret medical files of the 18th dynasty. We are peeling back the golden masks to see the true faces of those who once ruled the known world. And those faces are terrifying. You are about to see ancient Egypt as only a pathologist has ever seen it. Our investigation begins not in a gilded palace, but in a paladins. The year is 1898, the golden age of Egyptology. A Frenchman, Victor Loret, descends into a deep, dark shaft in the Valley of the Kings. He is about to unseal tomb number 35. The limestone face promises an eternal, flawless reign, but the genes tell a different story, a story of decay, written not in stone, but in blood. It is a stark reminder that even for those who style themselves as gods, biology is the one power that cannot be defied, the one truth that can never be erased. In the Valley of the Kings, it is officially designated the sepulchre of a great warrior pharaoh, Amenhotep II. But within its shadowed corridors, an unsettling anomaly was discovered. The tomb had been repurposed. During an age of turmoil, priests had undertaken a desperate act of preservation. They gathered the royal mummies from looted crypts across the necropolis and concealed them here in a secret cache to save them from the desecration of marauders. But in one of the side chambers, in a tight, stifling niche, lying directly on the bare stone floor amidst the dust and debris, were 3 bodies. They had been stripped of their sarcophagi. They had been denied their golden masks. Their linen wrappings were crudely torn away, shredded by robbers of antiquity, searching for the precious scarabs placed upon the hearts of the dead. It was a gruesome, intimate tableau. The first was an older woman. Her long, thick chestnut hair, miraculously preserved, still fell upon her shoulders. Her face, though distorted by death, held an expression of calm. Archaeologists would come to call her the Elder Lady. Beside her lay a boy, no more than 10 or 12 years of age. His head was shorn, save for the single braided sidelock of youth upon his temple. And the third was a young woman, the Younger Lady. A single glance at her was enough to make even seasoned researchers, long accustomed to the visage of death, recoil. Hers was the face of a martyr. A catastrophic, gaping wound had obliterated her mouth and left cheek. Her jaw was shattered, her teeth knocked out and driven down into her throat. Her left eye socket had collapsed inward. Her right arm had been torn from her body and lay separate, as if wrenched from its socket in a final, desperate struggle. Her rib cage was crushed. Who was she? Why was she not buried with the honors befitting royalty? Why was her body cast aside? In ancient Egypt, the name, the Ren, was the key to eternal life. To deprive a mummy of its name was to murder the soul a second time, condemning it to wander forever in the void of non-existence. Someone of immense power had wanted this woman and her story erased from the world. But DNA remembers everything. 100 years after their discovery, these bodies would begin to speak. The year is 2010, the Cairo Museum. In a deep sub-basement, shielded from the city's oppressive heat and dust, a sterile, multi-million-dollar DNA laboratory has been built. Dr. Zahi Hawass, a legend in the field, assembles an international team of the world's finest geneticists from Germany, Italy, and Egypt. The mission is called the Tutankhamun Family Project. The task was tectonic, bordering on the realm of science fiction. To extract viable DNA from mummies that had lain in the searing desert for 3,000 Nefertiti after an explosion. Heat is the primary enemy of DNA. It shreds the long, elegant chains of molecules into microscopic, unusable fragments. Beyond the heat, the ancient embalmers themselves had waged a chemical war on the genetic material. They used aggressive substances, hot bitumen, the resins of coniferous trees, natron and salt. These compounds permeated the flesh and bone, chemically annihilating or blocking the very code of life the scientists sought. And then there was the final, insidious problem: contamination. Over 3 millennia, these mummies had been touched by hundreds of hands: priests, robbers, discoverers, and tourists. The DNA of a modern human could easily fall upon the remains, overwhelming the faint, ancient signal and corrupting the results. The challenge was to find a single coherent voice in a storm of silent decay and modern noise, a truth that someone, long ago, had gone to such violent lengths to bury forever. To pierce the veil of millennia, scientists took unprecedented measures. With micro-drills, finer than a dentist's tool, they ventured into the very heart of royal bone, seeking the deepest marrow, a sanctuary untouched by the hands of embalmers, a time capsule where the fragile threads of DNA might yet survive. For countless hours, computers churned, sifting through millions of genetic fragments. They hunted for a specific signature: microsatellites, the short, repeating sequences that serve as an immutable family crest, passed from parent to child. When the data finally resolved into a coherent story, the researchers were stunned. The conclusion was so staggering, they sent the samples to an independent laboratory in the United States for verification. There was no error. The puzzle pieces snapped into place, and the image they formed was one of royal horror. Science had delivered its first devastating blow to a cherished romantic myth. Genetics confirmed the identity of the elder lady from tomb KV35. She was the great Queen T, wife of Amenhotep III, and the younger lady, found beside her, was now identified unequivocally as the biological mother of Tutankhamun. This was a global sensation. The father was already known. The mummy from the enigmatic tomb KV55 was the heretic Pharaoh Akhenaten. But the analysis delved deeper. Scientists compared the younger lady's genetic code to the pharaohs of old and discovered her parents were none other than Amenhotep III and Queen T, the same parents as her husband Akhenaten. The implication was as inescapable as a final verdict. Akhenaten and his queen, the mother of Tutankhamun, were not merely husband and wife. They were full-blooded brother and sister. The legend of a great love between Akhenaten and Nefertiti, the beauty who supposedly gave him his heir, was vaporized. If the younger lady were Nefertiti, she would have been her husband's sister. Yet historical records are silent. Nefertiti is never granted the title King's Daughter. Her honors are Great Royal Wife, Lady of the Two Lands. It is far more likely she came from a different noble line. This meant the mother of the most famous pharaoh in history was not the legendary beauty of the iconic bust. She was an unnamed princess, Akhenaten's own sister, used as a biological vessel to produce an heir. Tutankhamun was the product of the most severe form of incest. Why? The ancient Egyptians did not know genetics, but they were consumed by theology. In their pantheon, gods married their sisters, Osiris and Isis, Set and Nephthys. The pharaohs saw themselves as gods on earth, their blood a solar substance, a liquid gold. To mix this divine ichor with the blood of a mortal, even one of high birth, was to dilute their divinity, to weaken the magical fortifications of Egypt itself. They sought to engineer a race of superhumans, beings equal to the gods. But in the place of gods, they created frailty. For nature knows nothing of titles or divine right. It knows only the immutable laws of inheritance. The laws of biology would exact a cruel revenge. To understand it, one must look to the art of the Amarna period. The statues of Akhenaten are the stuff of nightmares, figures seemingly sculpted for a tale of science fiction. An elongated egg-shaped skull, a disproportionately long, narrow face with a heavy jaw, perched at wide, almost feminine hips, a pendulous belly, a soft chest, and importantly, for generations, historians offered explanations. It was a new artistic style, they argued, a form of symbolism. Akhenaten wished to show that his god, the Aten, was both father and mother to all creation. Therefore, he depicted himself as an androgynous being. Others, from the fringes, cried out that this was proof of ancient alien contact, that these were not men, but hybrids. Then, DNA analysis revealed a truth far more prosaic and far more terrible. The answer was not in the realm of art or the cosmos. It was disease. A cascade of systemic hereditary pathologies. The royal family suffered from a host of genetic abnormalities, the bitter fruit of relentless inbreeding. First, likely Marfan syndrome, a genetic disorder of the connective tissue. This would account for the arachneal heart defects. Second, familial gynecomastia, a hormonal imbalance passed down through the generations, leading to an excess of estrogen. This causes the growth of breast tissue in males and the deposit of fat on the hips in a female pattern, explaining Akhenaten's strange and unsettling physique. Third, craniosynostosis, the premature fusion of the skull's sutures. As a child's brain grows, the skull box cannot expand sideways. It is forced to elongate backward, assuming the shape of a melon. It is an agonizing condition, often accompanied by relentless, crushing headaches. Fourth, the spectre of Antley-Bixler syndrome, an exceedingly rare mutation causing the fusion of arm bones and further deforming the skull. They were, in a word, invalids. The golden boy, Tutankhamun, whom we imagine as a young athlete racing his chariot and felling enemies with his bow, was in reality a pitiable cripple. A virtual autopsy, performed through computed tomography, became less an archaeological study and more the reading of a medical encyclopedia of pathology. He was born with a cleft palate, a classic marker of incestuous parentage. His spine was severely twisted by scoliosis, but the most horrific afflictions were in his legs. He suffered from a club foot on the left side, forcing him to walk on the ankle, his foot turned inward. This was compounded by Curler disease II, avascular necrosis of the bones in his feet. Deprived of blood, the tissue of his own skeleton was dying while he was still alive, inflicting a hellish pain with every step, a torment comparable to walking on shattered glass. In his tomb, archaeologists found 130 canes. They were not merely symbols of authority or fashionable accessories. Many show clear signs of heavy wear, worn down on the exact side where he would have needed to support his weight. They were crutches. He could not stand without support. The great Pharaoh, the living god, lord of the two lands, was a 19-year-old boy, broken by the legacy of his own divine blood. A kingdom that rotted from within, poisoned by the ambitions of its ancestors. He would not die in the glory of battle. He perished in his sleep, a king broken not by an enemy's sword, but by the very code of his own genetics. But his story begins with another, a woman known to us only as the Younger Lady, the mother of this unfortunate king. Who was she? History offers only whispers. Perhaps Nefertiti or Akhenaten, one of the lesser daughters of Amenhotep III, her name a footnote, rarely spoken in the grand chronicles of the Nile. Yet it is her death, not her life, that screams across the millennia. Forensic scientists, using three-dimensional modeling of her shattered skull, have reconstructed the final violent moments. This was no accident, not a stone dislodged in an earthquake, not the careless brutality of tomb robbers. The blow was delivered by a heavy, sharp-edged weapon, likely a battle axe or a mace with a bladed head. It struck the face diagonally from left to right, a cataclysmic impact that obliterated the upper jaw, annihilated the nose, and shattered the teeth. It fractured the eye socket, driving shards of bone deep into the brain. In the crevices of that wound, a protein was found, fibrin, the agent of blood clotting. It is the silent, irrefutable witness that her heart was still beating when the blow landed. The blood was trying to heal the wound. She was alive. She saw her killer. The strike came from the front. This was an execution, or a murder of unimaginable rage. Who could have done this? The trail leads into the darkest corridors of the palace at Akhenaten. The pharaoh, Akhenaten, is fading, his power weakening. The kingdom is in chaos. His religious revolution has failed, and the priests of Amun hunger for revenge. Within the palace walls, a vicious struggle for succession is underway. Was the younger lady slain as a symbol of a despised regime, or was the motive something far more personal? Nefertiti, the great royal wife, wielded colossal power, depicted as an equal to her husband. But for all her authority, she had failed to produce a male heir. 6 daughters were born to her. 6. And then, an obscure sister of the king gives birth to the one thing Nefertiti could not, a son, the future king, Tutankhamun. Could the most beautiful woman in the world, an icon of style and grace, have given the order to eliminate her rival? Could this devastating blow to the face have been an act of symbolic hatred to erase the beauty of the one who dared to give the god-king a son when she herself could not? The treatment of her body speaks of haste and contempt. The incision to remove her organs was a crude gash. Her mouth, left agape, was not bound shut as tradition demanded. In the Egyptian belief system, an open mouth in the afterlife is an eternal scream, an inability to plead one's case at the final judgment of Osiris. They did not just want to kill her, they wanted to curse her soul. She was given no name, no sarcophagus. Her body was cast into a cache vide. But the most heartbreaking discovery of all awaited archaeologists in the tomb of her son, Tutankhamun. Tucked away in a corner of the treasury, inside a simple wooden box, lay 2 miniature human-shaped coffins, coated in black resin. Within were the mummified remains of 2 infants, both girls. DNA analysis would confirm the unthinkable. They were the children of Tutankhamun, and their mother, Ankhesenamun. And who was she? The daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Tutankhamun and Ankhesenamun were half-brother and half-sister. The golden age of the 18th dynasty did not end with a bang, but with a whisper of genetic decay and silent palace murders. The ambitions of gods on earth created a legacy of suffering, where love was bound by lineage and life was a fragile commodity in the shadow of the throne. The secrets of the dead do not always stay buried. Sometimes they are etched in bone, a permanent testament to the brutal realities that lie beneath the gilded masks of power. The circle closed, the madness endured. Brother wed sister. Their children, born of this union and already deeply afflicted, would in turn wed one another. But nature had delivered its verdict. The genetic margin for error was gone. The first daughter, specimen 317, was delivered in the 5th month of pregnancy. She never drew a single breath. The second daughter, from the same parents, was carried nearly to term, but tomography scans revealed a horrifying tableau of development within the womb. The child had Sprengel's deformity. Her shoulder blade fused directly to her spine. Her shoulder was locked in an unnaturally raised position. She suffered from a cleft spine, spina bifida, and a crippling scoliosis. She was not viable. The 18th dynasty, the dynasty of the great conquerors, the Thutmosids, the builders of Luxor and Karnak, did not end on a battlefield under the crushing wheels of Hittite chariots. It ended in the hushed stillness of a royal birthing chamber, amid pools of blood and the tears of a mother. Their genes were so corrupted they could no longer replicate themselves. They had become a biological dead end. The blood of the gods had turned into an acid, devouring the flesh it was meant to sustain. Tutankhamun, himself an ailing boy, buried his own children, knowing his line was doomed. This was the true tragedy of the Golden Pharaoh, not the mythical curse of the mummy sensationalized by the newspapers of the 1920s, but the real, inescapable curse of DNA. But this story of decay holds another deeper mystery. Where was Nefertiti? If the mummy known as the Younger Lady is Akhenaten's sister and not Nefertiti, who was not of royal blood, then where did the great royal wife disappear? For years it was believed she had died in a plague or fallen from grace in the 12th year of Akhenaten's reign, but her name vanishes from the record. But new interpretations of hieratic inscriptions from the quarries of Deir el-Bersha suggest a far more radical truth. In the 16th year of Akhenaten's rule, not long before his death, Nefertiti was not only still in power, she had been elevated to co-regent. From this, a breathtaking theory emerges. Nefertiti outlived her husband, and she did not merely survive, she ruled. A woman as pharaoh, reigning alone under the throne name Neferuaten, or perhaps Smenkhkare, the identity is still debated. For several years, she may have ruled Egypt with an iron hand, attempting to salvage a collapsing dynasty, perhaps even initiating the return to the old gods, recognizing the catastrophic error of her husband's vision. But where is her body? A pharaoh of such magnitude could not have been simply buried in the sand. In 2015, the British Egyptologist Nicholas Reeves, studying high-resolution laser scans of the walls inside Tutankhamun's burial chamber, beneath the painted scenes, straight lines emerged, the unmistakable outlines of sealed-up doorways. Reeves proposed a high KV-62, was never intended for him at all. It is suspiciously small for a king. Its very layout, with an entrance corridor that turns to the right, is the traditional design for a queen. The tombs of kings turn to the left. The tomb of a boy king may be nothing more than an antechamber, a waiting room for the true ruler, hidden just beyond the plaster. A queen whose ambition was so great it defied the gods, her own biology, and perhaps even death itself. The tomb known as KV-62 is not what it seems. When Tutankhamun died suddenly at 19, likely from sepsis following a fractured leg, the priesthood was left with a crisis. No royal sepulchre stood ready. The construction of his own tomb was years from completion. In a panic, racing against the sacred 70-day ritual deadline, they made an audacious choice. They unsealed the tomb of his stepmother, Nefertiti, who had lain there for a decade. They walled off her burial chamber, concealing it from history. Over the fresh plaster, they painted scenes for the boy king and laid him to rest not in a grand chamber, but in what was originally the tomb's antechamber. The implication is staggering. It means Nefertiti is still there, right now, behind the northern wall, painted with its vivid scenes of the underworld, just meters from the throngs of oblivious tourists. She rests in an untouched chamber, filled with gold, with papyri, and with answers. Initial ground-penetrating radar scans, conducted by the Japanese specialist Hirokatsu Watanabe, revealed the presence of voids and what appeared to be metallic and organic objects behind the wall. But a second scan by National Geographic produced contradictory results. Fearing the destruction of the unique, priceless paintings, Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities forbade any drilling. We stand before a door for which we possess the key, but are forbidden to turn it. It is the Schrödinger's cat of Egyptology. Nefertiti is at once there and not there. To understand this family, we must speak of the heads. It is one of the most visually shocking details of the entire Amarna period. The shape of the skulls, as depicted in the art, is profoundly unsettling. Tomography of the royal mummies, Tutankhamun, the so-called younger lady, and Akhenaten himself, revealed that their skulls were indeed elongated, a condition known as dolichocephaly, but not to the grotesque extent seen in the statues and reliefs. Here, anthropologists uncovered evidence of a terrifying practice: binding. In the royal family, artificial cranial deformation was the norm. From the first days of life, the skulls of royal infants were tightly bound with boards and cloth, forcing the soft bones to grow not upward, but backward. Why the result of pathology, craniosynostosis, or perhaps hydrocephalus. But the family did not hide this flaw. They sanctified it. They transformed a disease into a divine cult. They deliberately disfigured their own children so that they might carry the physical seal of a god. It was a fashion for deformity elevated to the absolute, a sign of their caste, a mark of belonging. Imagine the pain of these infants, their soft skulls compressed in a vice to conform to a mad standard of beauty. Consider the psychological atmosphere they inhabited. The isolated city of Akhenaten, built from nothing in the middle of the desert in just a few years. Its boundaries were marked by stelae, which the populace was forbidden to cross. A searing sun reflected from white limestone. A fanatic father who saw God in the sun's disk and declared all others false, shattering 1,000 years of tradition. A mother, Nefertiti, obsessed with power and the birth of a male heir she would never have. And the children, 6 daughters. Trapped within this crucible of sun, faith, and ambition, they shaped their very bodies to reflect a divinend sealed. We can scan the walls and study the bones, but the true nature of the minds that conceived such a reality, a kingdom of strange gods and stranger kings, may be a mystery we are never meant to solve. They existed within a gilded cage, a family who married only each other, who saw only each other. It was a sect the size of a single household, yet it held dominion over the most powerful empire on earth. And at its heart, a frail and sickly stepson, Tutankhamun. His psychological portrait is one of enduring tragedy. He was raised an orphan. His mother, the noblewoman known to us only as the younger lady, was murdered when he was just an infant. His upbringing fell to his stepmother, the formidable Nefertiti, who may have despised him, the living, breathing proof of her own failure to provide the throne with a male heir. He was then married to his own half-sister. This was no mighty ruler. He was a marionette, his strings pulled by the aging vizier Ai and the ambitious general Horemheb. These shadows behind the throne governed the empire, while the boy king played with his gilded toys, tormented by the constant searing pain in his legs. His early death at 19 was not a tragedy for the state. It was a deliverance. He succumbed to sepsis, a raging infection of the blood, following an open fracture of his leg. The injury was likely sustained in a fall from a chariot he could not even mount without the help of servants. His body, stripped of its defenses by generations of incest, simply surrendered. Malaria, its DNA found lingering in his royal blood, delivered the final blow. With the death of Tutankhamun, the dynasty itself collapsed. His widow, Ankhesenamun, the last of her line, wrote a desperate letter to the king of the Hittites, Egypt's sworn enemy. "My husband is dead," she pleaded. "I have no son. Send me one of your sons, and he will become my husband and the king of Egypt. I am afraid to take one of my servants and make him my husband." She was speaking of Ai, her own grandfather. The prospect of such a union terrified her. The Hittite prince Zenanzo was dispatched, but he never reached Egypt. He was assassinated at the border, the order likely given by General Horemheb. Ankhesenamun vanished from history. I became pharaoh. Then Horemheb seized the throne. The new rulers initiated a campaign of total erasure, a damnatio memoriae, the condemnation of memory. They hacked the names of Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and Tutankhamun from stone. They dismantled their temples, shattered their statues, determined to wipe this entire period from the annals of history, as if awakening from a terrible dream. Tutankhamun's tomb was buried under rubble from the construction of a neighboring tomb, that of Ramesses VI, and was forgotten for 3,000 years. And it was this very oblivion that became its salvation, shielding it from the ravages of tomb robbers. Today, the DNA analysis of the 18th dynasty has torn the masks away, revealing the unvarnished truth behind the splendor. We can no longer gaze upon the golden mask of Tutankhamun and see only its luster. We now see the pain and suffering of a child trapped within. We can no longer look at the bust of Nefertiti and see only her cold, serene beauty. We see the ambition, the fanaticism, and the cruelty that brought an empire to its knees. Science has shown us the price paid for the attempt to rise above nature. For nature does not forgive such hubris. The laws of biology are implacable, and they are the same for all, from the lowliest peasant to the living god who wore the crown of a pharaoh. This is not a polished image for a tourist brochure. It is a dark thriller of degeneration. It is the story of how one of the world's most powerful dynasties engineered its own ruin. How, in a desperate quest to preserve a divine bloodline, they turned their own legacy to poison. Today, she lies under glass in the silent halls of a museum. The younger lady. Her face, a mask of ancient trauma, is forever marred. But she is no longer anonymous. Science has given her a voice, a history. We know she was the mother of a king, a casualty of the very system she was born to uphold. A name is whispered, a tantalizing possibility. Nefertiti. She waits still, hidden perhaps in the darkness behind the painted walls of her own stepson's tomb. Should we ever find the courage to breach that final wall, her very DNA could unravel a truth more shocking than any myth. Was she the architect of this gilded collapse, or the lone voice who fought to prevent it? It forces a question upon us. Are some secrets meant to remain entombed in silence, risking the destruction of a perfect monument for a truth we may not be prepared to bear? For history is not merely the story told by its victors. It is a text written in the blood, an indelible code carried across the ages, waiting in the dark to finally be read.